What's up, strongest men, women, and children from blocks all around the world? I am my block's strongest man, and I have for you tonight two very awesome guests, Hannah the Destroyer and John Mauser. We already, guys, have somebody in the comments saying "woohoo!" John's a genius. So we got some fans in the audience already, ready to hear all the awesome stuff this evening. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, it'll be a blast.
Yeah, how did you two meet? I'm wondering what that story is all about.
Well, a little scandalous. So he was actually my personal trainer. And it was like it's kind of like one of those weird soap opera shows where you just kind of hang out all the time and then we fell in love.
Awesome. So we have feats of strength, we have athlete mindset, and you both compete in traditional strongman as well, right? So I'm just wondering, kind of, are the feats of strength an extension of competition, or the other way around? Like, how did that all evolve?
Yeah, for me, I was competing first, doing strongman competitions and stuff. And then there was actually a show in Mannington, West Virginia. And I wasn't competing in the show, but somebody had asked me to go down and test a fire truck for a truck pull. And there was a guy there bending steel, and he asked if anybody wanted to try to bend. It was like a 6-inch hex bolts, and asked if anybody wanted to bend it, and nobody stepped forward, and I thought that was weird, so I was like, well, I'll try it. And I actually bent it, but it was like unbelievably difficult. And then I thought, right then and there, I thought, well, I should be able to do this. And I just kind of got into it from there, and just started reading everything, and then I just fell in love with it and kept doing it.
So there are different qualities of steel, right? Because I think, didn't they do this in some of the early World's Strongest Man? I don't know if you watched some of those really early ones with Kaz and whatnot, and Franco Colombo when they were bending steel. And then the next year they came back. I think Kaz tells the story where they used some triple hardened steel the next year, and it was really, really hard.
Yeah, you have to know what you're getting your hands on. There's different grades, and then of course the length matters, and then the way that you bend it matters. In World's Strongest Man, they had them bending it over their head and behind their neck and things like that, and that may not be the best way to bend things.
So for both of you, what was your first feat of strength? Hannah, if you want to go first, what was the first kind of out of the ordinary feat of strength that you did?
Mine was a bolt, right? Yeah, I was at one of his personal training sessions, and he handed me a bolt, and he was like, "Hey, can you bend this?" And I did. And then from there, I was like, I love this. And so I went to work that day and just started bending nails, little tiny, the small ones, the little tiny nails. So that's where it started for me.
I mean, were you doing a lot of grip training before that? Because I mean, there's kind of the crushing strength, the pincher strength, the different sort of grip strengths. Is this something that just came naturally to you, or were you kind of training grip a lot before that?
I don't think it was specific. It was just deadlifts, just regular stuff. It wasn't anything I wasn't doing any of the grip stuff specifically.
Yeah, normally when I train people in person, we don't use a lot of straps and stuff. So and we deadlift on the axle bars a lot. So it's indirect grip strength, I guess.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I was actually looking at one of your IG posts, John, about stone lifting. And I think you actually did a comp. It was called In the Woods or something like that. I thought that was the coolest thing because, I like running the trails and finding some stones and logs to lift. So when I see all the IG posts you have about that kind of stuff, it's really intriguing to me. Obviously you're lifting bigger stones than I am, but you were talking about doing rows and doing if it's light enough, you do, if you do a push press, then try a strict press and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool where people think you need traditional bars and apparatuses, but you can do a lot with what you find all around you, I think sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean that's how, before bars and stuff, that's how people had to do it, right? You just you found a thing and then you did whatever you could with that thing. And I still think that's very applicable. And in a lot of ways, I know being able to microload a bar is useful. But I also think it's useful to have an object that you might not be able to do a lot with, and then that motivation to do something with that object I think a lot of times you'll get stronger faster that way than by microloading some bar or dumbbell or object.
Yeah, I mean, have you and the folks that you train done comps a lot where there's kind of non-traditional objects like this?
Oh yeah, yeah. My brother used to run like 12 or more shows a year, and he always tried to have very showy stuff in the competitions. So especially in his competitions, I've lifted some pretty crazy stuff, and then Barrett Young over in Maryland has some pretty non-traditional things in his competitions as well.
Cool. Now, forgive my ignorance. Is Paul your brother?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So I don't know if he or both of you famous for the Mauser block.
It was his invention, but we kind of promoted it through my website, and I ran a lot of deals with it, with where if you paid for so much online training, you'd get a free block and things like that. So we kind of co-promoted it, but really it was his thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece of equipment to say the least. The first time I saw it was at the 2021 Mammoth Strength Challenge, and you had a lot of folks going for world records with it. Steve Schmidt was there, Jessica Fithen was there, Gabby Bergholzer, right? And it was really cool to pick their brains afterward on what it takes to lift it, because especially there was a dirt floor, right? So the feet kind of sink a little bit, and in your mind, what are the intricacies and kind of what makes the Mauser block interesting and maybe difficult to lift more so than other overhead pressing?
Man, well, the big thing is the depth of the object. So it's not like a bar where the whole thing fits in your hand, or even like a log. I mean, a lot of that's engulfing your hand, but the block sits on top of your hand and extends beyond it. So that makes it unstable, and you really have to learn how to use, it's called radiant tension, but how to squeeze that block with your hands as best you can and use your body to stabilize the thing. But that's usually, if somebody fails a block press, it's usually a stability issue, because that thing will just get away from you. And then, of course, for lighter people, it's so large, in comparison to them, that can cause more stability issues. But that's really the big one, is that. And then there's no, I guess, like pretty way to get the thing to your chest. Like you can do a fancy clean with a barbell, or you can even make cleaning a log look pretty fancy, I guess. But the block is just, it's not supposed to be lifted. So you have to fling it up there and just kind of deal with it.
Yeah, it's almost as if you're trying to clean a short log if it didn't have handles. Like, where do I grab this thing kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, like I said, I saw it there and it was pretty cool. Jamie Wilson was there as well, trying to press it, and it's a different kind of apparatus for sure. It's plate loadable, right?
Yeah, it'll take 25s and anything smaller.
Interesting. And when did your brother invent this?
Ooh.
Man, I am terrible with with times and dates and stuff. But I would say 6 years ago.
It was in nationals, right?
Yeah, they've had it in nationals, I think, once or twice.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably 6 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Awesome. And so I asked Hannah, but John, what was your first feat of strength that you ever tried?
You mean like a old time feat of strength?
Yeah.
Well, probably that that bolt that the guy had handed me, and then I think I immediately got into card tearing right after that. So the bolt and then card tearing.
Like decks of cards?
Yeah, tearing a deck of cards in half. Yeah.
So is there a technique involved in that you'd like to share? I'm interested to learn how that's done, other than just be strong enough.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is, it's like with anything, right? Like, I know that a lot of the old time feats of strength, people say it's like all technique or whatever. But to me, it's like any other lift, like you could just muscle tear a deck of cards if you were strong enough to do it. But yeah, it's all about finding you creating a stiffness in the deck, and then where that stiffness is, you tear it. And I actually, when I'm teaching somebody how to do it, I say you break it, because you get this certain point in the deck by twisting it, and it gets so stiff when you first tear it, it can almost sound like it breaks instead of tearing. And so I think that's a better, I guess, visual or cue is the initial tear is a break.
Okay, cool. And then Hannah, I was wondering, I saw on your IG some of the feats of strength you do are kind of mixed with gymnastics, like you're doing splits while you're breaking nails and things like that. So how did kind of all that come into your mind to add in that element?
So when I was coaching people in person, I used to have like a whole mobility thing. And so I started doing splits a lot. And then I was like, one time we did a photo shoot and I pressed the Mauser block over my head in a split. And so that's where I kind of got the idea. I was like, all right, that's a little crazy. Let's see if we can take my feats of strength like to a different level where people would be like, oh my gosh, there's no way someone could do something like that in a split. So that's where I got the idea.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm actually flipping through it right now. There's another one where you're log pressing and the log still has the bark on it. Like I I took a log out of the woods and I'm sanding it and sanding it. Maybe I'm doing work for nothing. What do you say?
I love it. I love the natural logs. They're my favorite.
I should have left it alone. I actually went to, it's a funny story. I went to it's not a state park, but like a nature center, right? And so I went to their little office and I asked them like, "Hey, I want to make a strongman pressing log out of one of the logs you guys already cut. Can I go take it?" And they're like, "Huh?" Like nobody knows what strongman is, right? So what are you talking about? And I said, never mind. Have a nice day. As soon as he turned around, I just took it and threw it in my trunk and left.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah. So I just have to figure out how to, cut out the spaces for the handles and, get the sides done and all that. But then we'll be good to go.
Yeah. That'll be so cool too. I just think they aesthetically look a lot cooler than having to do like just a metal log. I don't know. There's just something more, I guess, like primal about it or whatever.
Yeah, I don't want to steal log for sure. Definitely not. I mean, what do you two think is kind of the difference in lifting the two? Is there a difference in the feel? I would imagine the wood logs are more dense, right? Because they're not hollow. But how do they feel differently from each other when pressing them?
I get a better grip. Like when I'm cleaning, it'll grip my shirt or it grips my skin better. And I know that sounds weird, but I can just clean it so much easier than I can the metal log. Because unless you're wearing a grip shirt, and if you have leggings on or something, the metal logs will just slide. So it's a little bit, I guess it's not like enough to make that big of a difference, but that's why I like another reason why I like the wooden logs is because they just stick to me better.
Yeah, that bark just climbs, right up. And I think this is cool. A lot of people probably don't like it, but no matter how well you cut this thing and do whatever, the weight's never going to be even. So it's always going to be maybe heavier on one side or maybe even smaller on one side. There's going to be imperfections, which I actually think is cool. But I guess that could cause some issues.
No, I think it's cool too, because I would imagine, if you buy a Slater log, it's perfectly balanced and whatnot. Like I like that my log's imperfect, like I want my stabilizer muscles to work to balance it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool. What was Hannah, what was the first competition you ever did?
It was
powerlifting meet.
I did a powerlifting meet. It was an unsanctioned powerlifting meet at a local YMCA, right? And then my first strongman was the Blizzard was the Blizzard competition in like 2000 and I don't know, 14 maybe 13. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a cool competition that Paul used to put on because it was like all blind, or you knew all the events except for one, so you'd go in with like a blind event. And
that's cool.
So that was always fun for me. Lots of people don't like it.
I think they were all blind.
Were they all blind?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, were they really?
Yeah, I think the whole show was, they announced it a week out.
Wow. Yeah, World's Ultimate Strongman did a one event blind. It was a flag hoist last year, I think. So I think
Yeah.
that's cool too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I never, thought about whether it's cool for the athlete or not, but from a fan's perspective, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's cool.
Yeah. What was the surprise?
What was it? No, it's like so fun, so bad. I have to think about the events that it was. There's definitely a deadlift, right? There was the log press. Oh, wasn't it the snowball throw? Or no, that was your competition.
No, that was Paul's.
That was Paul's.
Yeah, it was like
some kind of
shot put.
Yeah.
But it was like these giant white packed sandbags, and I think you threw 3 of them or something.
Yeah, as far as you could. Yeah.
That's cool. So it's almost mixing in like a Highland Games type event.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Yeah. Like I do that too. Like you say in your IG post, if the stone's light enough, throw it. Like I go do that too. Like I shot put stones in the woods. It's like we're kindred spirits, John, I tell you. But yeah, like it's funny, like of all the feats of strength that you've done, John, the one that sticks in my mind, maybe because of like just the visual of it, is the overhead press wagon wheel axle. I think you know which one I mean. Like you do that one and you do a stone overhead press in the same Instagram post. Where'd you find that axle with those giant wheels? Like where'd you get these things?
So actually, the guy that handed me the bolt that day and asked me if I could bend it, I've been friends with him ever since, and he has a bunch of that stuff at his house.
Okay.
And sometimes I go down there, and I just happened to be down there one day, and we pulled those wagon wheels out and found a bar that would fit through them, and we just played around with them. I pressed them, and that stone that he has, it's kind of like a they have like the manhood stones and stuff in Scotland. I guess this is kind of like that. It's called the Lionheart stone, and there's only been so many people that have pressed it overhead, and anybody can go to his house and he'll let them try to press the stone or whatever.
Nice. Where is he located? What state?
In Mannington, West Virginia.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that where you guys are based out of, West Virginia?
Yeah, but we're in a different town. We're like 45 minutes from him. We're in Morgantown.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm up in New Jersey, so haven't been down that way in a while.
Yeah.
Cool. You guys didn't get that storm this past weekend, did you?
No.
No, not really.
I mean, it was a little rainy, but it wasn't anything crazy.
Oh, it was bad up here. The whole weekend was washed out, like Thursday night until like last night. Just storm and high wind mornings. Yeah. Enough to ruin the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what other feats of strength have you done, either of you, that I didn't touch on so far? I mean, John, like you have crazy stuff all over your Instagram where I think we could spend hours just like you teaching me about that power twister and like all these different things that the layperson wouldn't even think to try. Like, I guess I'll ask it this way. What's the coolest feat of strength you think someone who's never tried this before, could maybe try and not get discouraged the first time, and kind of what's the coolest thing you would recommend to somebody trying this for the first time?
Oh man.
The coolest thing? Like a horseshoe?
Yeah, well, any kind of long steel bending, I think. So that would be like, anything that's 3 or 4 feet long, like a piece of rebar, because there's so many different ways that you can bend to that. If you just went online and looked at other people bending steel that length, you would probably come across a technique or whatever you want to call it that would allow you to bend it. And now, as long as it wasn't like 2 inches thick or something, but you would be able to bend that. And I think that's really cool about that, because there's just so many different ways that you can bend it, and everybody seems to have, let's say there's 5 different ways. Almost everybody will have one that they just like excel at. And like for me, I like to get down on one knee and bend steel across my knee that's up, like in a lunge position. And that's my favorite way to get a bend started that's pretty long. But other people can, do it like kind of between their leg and bend the bar across over their hamstring. There's just so many different ways to do it. If you just go on YouTube and look, or Instagram or whatever, you'll find a way to bend one of those bars. And and then you'll be stuck. You'll be hooked.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going to ask the obvious question here. When you say bend over your knee, you're doing it on your bare knee wearing shorts. Like, you're not protected. Doesn't it hurt?
For some reason, it doesn't bother me too much. I don't know. If I do a bunch, like if I did, 5 or 6 like pretty tough bends, it would start to bother me. But what I do is I keep my old any like blown out knee sleeves or elbow sleeves. I always keep a pair, and then if it comes to it, I don't even put it on like you would wear it. I just put it over my knee, and I'll bend that way if I'm going to do a whole bunch of bends or something. But yeah, I don't think that's most people that would probably bother, but for some reason it just doesn't. One of those things. That's why I'm good at that bend, I guess. But it doesn't really bother me.
Cool. And we talked briefly about horseshoes. Hannah, didn't you make a horseshoe into an S at some point?
Yeah. Yeah. I've done an S, and I've been one into a heart too. Like you can, I don't have one over here close by, but wait. Oh yeah, actually I do. John did this one, but like that.
Nice.
So this is like my newer feat of strength that I've done ish. I'm getting better at it, but yeah.
See, that seems crazy because, typical people, we grab a horseshoe and it doesn't move at all. Like, how do you, that had a twist in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you put a twist in a horseshoe? Because it's not even just bending. It's this, like, I don't even understand how that works.
Well, you wrote a book you talk about, because it's a little,
did you?
How you have the hand placement on it matters for sure.
Plug it, man. For sure, plug it. We want people to buy your book. This is like a skill that nobody has. So yeah, for sure. Plug it.
Well, if I can talk about it, yeah, I have a book. It's called Forgotten Strength 101. You can get it on Amazon. There's an ebook and a physical copy if you want it. And I go over 3 feats. It's how to bend a horseshoe, how to tear a deck of cards in half, and then the human hammer feat, where you take your hand and you drive a nail through a board with just your hand. Yeah, I think it's like $10 or something.
Awesome. No, worth a lot more value than that for sure. I think you're the human hammer because Hannah bent all your hammers. You don't have any left.
What can I say? That's my favorite. I love doing that feat of strength.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on there. But the other thing, so we talked about horseshoes, and Hannah, the other one that really got my attention, and I'm sure you remember this one, and maybe this goes into more of the mindset discussion that we wanted to touch on, is what's with all the animal traps?
Oh, that was a big mindset thing for me. That was, I was working with John at the time, and we were into the feat of strength stuff, and he brought out these animal traps, and he was like, I want you to told me about it. He's like, you can put your hand in this, you'll be fine. And I was like, no way, not a chance. You're insane. And he kept like talking to me about it and getting in my head a little bit, like, hey, you can do this. You're not going to hurt yourself. You'll be fine. And eventually I did it, but I was nerve wracked. I was like, it was just one of those things where I was like, you know what? If I break my hand, I break my hand. It's going to be fine. And I did it. And then after that, he showed me a video of a girl on YouTube who was really small and super skinny, and she did it, and it was kind of like one of those things where it's like, well, if she can do it, I can do it too. But he didn't show me that until after, and I was like, oh well, duh, I can. And so that was a big moment for me as far as mindset goes anyways, when I started to realize, wait a second, your mind has a lot to do with this, because I was able to do this all along. It was just my own self stopping myself. So yeah.
Interesting. And then do you offer mindset services?
Yeah. That's primarily what I do right now. I just do mindset work with athletes.
Oh, fantastic. And then, not to give away the secret sauce, because we definitely want people to come purchase and get all the value out of it, but just an outline, a skeleton of kind of things that you provide.
Yeah, so we'll start off with getting really clear, and I talk about this all the time, so I don't care to get, I'm not hiding anything. Talk about getting in, or getting really clear with the thoughts that are in your head, because there's a lot of self-dialogue, especially with amateur athletes, about how they're not good enough and how they can't do this and how they can't be better or something than someone else. Or they'll get on Instagram and they're super excited, and then they'll see someone else repping their max and it'll just throw them off for the whole week, or they'll let a training day throw their whole week off, or like a bad training day. And so from there, we start rewiring their neural pathways with more positive feedback to themselves, and really get clear on the self-dialogue. That's the number one thing. If you were going to take away from anything with the mindset stuff, is just get really clear on your self-dialogue. And then from there, we just build upon that. So we'll start with different affirmations and things, but I bring into it, the reason why a lot of affirmations don't work for people is they're either really just like vague, like they'll just find one on Instagram, they're not specific to them, and they don't put the emotional attachment behind it. In order to like rewire your neural pathways, you have to have an emotional response behind it. And when you're able to do that, I do this with like music and all kinds of other stuff, it really starts to impact, and then we just build on it from there.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I noticed with myself recently, not athletic wise, but like I'm trying to learn this new skill. And so I'll set a podcast or YouTube in the car and listen to it while I'm going. And I get distracted easily. I don't know if you find this with your clients at all. Like I start thinking about the negative stuff going on in my mind. And then, the guy that was teaching this process on the YouTube video, he's up to step 7 and I missed steps like 1 through 6 because I got distracted with negativity. Do you ever have to battle with that with your clients?
Yeah, we do. So that's one of the things we do, is we have a lot of focus practices where we'll go and we'll focus on specific things, because excuse me, one of the things with athletes is when they compete, they get really nervous and they start to feel sick. Like I've had plenty of people that have been like, I feel sick, like I'm not gonna be able to do this. So it's being able to focus enough to understand and realize that your nerves can work for you, and get that piece there, and to focus on the thing in front of you instead of worrying about the outcome, because we're very outcome based as humans and athletes, because we want to win, right? If we want to win, we want to get the gold. And so when you let that outcome go, you're able to refocus on the things that matter, and harnessing like your own power and your own strength, and not worrying about anybody else. And that's really when you start to win, is when you're able to do that.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of negativity on social media as well. Cause like I was on TikTok the other day, and I'll tell you who this was about in a moment, but there was a well-known athlete doing a deadlift. And he said, here's a throwback to whatever year it was. I deadlifted 1,025 pounds, which we all know is amazing. Right. And he said, but I broke a rib because I forgot to put on my belt for this particular lift. And there's people slamming him in the comments and whatever. And I'm like, these people don't know, like it was Bobby Thompson. And I'm like, these people don't know who he is. Like he knows the right thing to do. Like he doesn't need your help,
Yeah, Bobby's awesome. We actually had a seminar, took a seminar from him last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. 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 So it was interesting. So you gotta filter out some of that stuff sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And once you can let that go, and then you just don't even worry about, like I get negative comments on TikTok all the time, but it doesn't even faze me. If anything, I'm like, can't wait to come up with something crazier. Let's do this. Like, give me ideas,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just lifting stones in the forest. I'm not bending nails, but like, I think I look weird to people, and you have like that subconscious telling you like, hey, just walk down the trail like everybody else. Then because I have my phone recording me and whatnot, and then I just decided like, you guys are weird. You're just walking.
Yeah, exactly. It's just flipping the narrative. A lot of the times it's just flipping the narrative. It's like, I don't really want to be normal. Why am I trying to be like everybody else? Like you're being weird, and being who you really want to be will totally set you free. It's like, it's awesome. And once you embrace that, you're like, you feel really good about yourself, and you feel really unstoppable.
Yeah. I assume that your clients, when they're coming to you, they have the technique down. They just need to get over mental barriers. Like for me, there's technique stuff, right? Because I don't compete. So when I'm lifting stones in the forest, for example, like it's hard to weigh them, but it was a cold day. It was a frozen ground. So I think the weight was somewhat accurate. I don't know. But let me start with this. John, do you weigh your stones, or do you just lift what's in front of you?
It depends. If I'm out, like if I go out in the woods or something, no, I don't really weigh them. Like if they're at like somebody's house, or if it's one I decide I'm going to keep, and I like take it to the gym or to my house, I'll weigh those. But I don't carry a scale with me. like if I'm just like walking around and decide, hey, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, see, I'm neurotic about it. So I carried a scale with me. Then I thought, well, the ground's uneven, so it's not going to be right. So I got a hanging scale and tie down straps. And now I have to go get a steel bar. There happens to be like this big concrete block in the woods. I don't know if it used to be part of a sewer system or whatever, but I have to get my my steel bar so I can lift it and get the right weight. I don't know. I'm kind of a perfectionist in that way. But the funny thing, I bring up technique because so I think the stone is around 210 pounds. And so I got it off the ground, but it wasn't clearing my knees. And I'm like, well, I can't lap it because it's not clearing my knees. And it just, I've spoken to folks like you and a lot of other strong men, strong women. So I start watching them on Instagram. And I watched Hannah Lindsay do an Atlas stone. Now, granted, they're spheres, it's different, but I watched the technique and I'm like, if you squat way down, it doesn't have to clear your knees. You counterbalance yourself and you roll it in. So I tried it again and I got it up to my chest the next day. So some of it is, I guess you need the technique first and then the mental barriers flow from there.
Yeah. Once you get it down, there's that. And then, things get heavier and heavier and you hit that mental block and then you just keep doing it. Right. And it's like it's an endless cycle. You train your brain just the same way you train a muscle. Like it's an endless process. It's not something you're just like, I took one course and it's done. I've got all the answers. Like you have to continually work on that because your negative stuff will come back so quickly. It's like, but when you do it all the time, you can catch it. And then you're like, okay, wait a second. I got to reframe this and move on. And then, do the technique and then it works.
Yeah. Change your outlook on things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting you bring up how amateurs see other people, repping their max and whatnot. Like there's an amateur in the world. Well, I don't think he is anymore, but Josh Silvis, and he's a monster.
Yeah.
So, some amateurs are really effing strong.
That's very true. Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, so I think before we wrap up, any other topics I haven't touched on that you wanted to talk about a little more? Some interesting either competitions or like exciting stuff coming up in the future?
Well, we have a still bending competition coming up this weekend, and I'm actually setting the world record as the first woman to bend a hammer. So that's exciting.
Wow.
I think other than that, that's pretty much it. Well, he's joined USS Nationals, so he'll be there.
Okay,
for that.
Cool.
And I'll be
Nationals
there.
Is when, June? When is it, June?
June 25th, I think. It's at the end of June.
I think so.
Nice. Are either of those being streamed by any chance?
I don't know. I don't know if USS Nationals. Our still bending competition.
The still bending won't
it's
be.
Pretty small.
But there will be tons of videos that spring up from that.
Mm-hmm.
Don Cummins is putting it on. He's a tremendous steel bender, one of the best in the country.
Absolutely.
And he's putting it on in Michigan. But USS Nationals, I don't know if it'll be streamed or not. I haven't read anything about it, but they have in the past, so maybe.
Awesome. All right, and then just any shout outs you'd like to give? Let's one more time. Hannah, how do folks contact you for your mindset services? And John, how do people buy your book?
Just contact me on Instagram is the best. My email is hannah@powerthroughmovement.net, so you can email me there as well. But Instagram is probably the best. I also have a Facebook group. It's called Strong Woman AF for any women who want to join. And then, that's the easiest.
Awesome.
I have a book on Amazon, Forgotten Strength 101. If you have any trouble finding it, you can message me on Instagram and I'll send you a link. I think the link might actually be in my bio as well.
And John, your Mauser Strength on Instagram, Hannah, you're Hannah the Destroyer, correct?
Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. All right. Awesome. Well, it was great having a chat with you this evening, learning about athlete mindset, feats of strength. I had a wonderful time and hopefully we do it again in the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Have a great night.
All right,
you too.
Bye.
All righty.